Hey there. I make very lousy introductions before I get to the meat and potatoes of the discussion, but as I said, hey there once again. I'm Bernie Bro, and I want to have a little discussion with you on why I would like to see the 1980s era Bernie Sanders back again. Now, how did I become acquainted with Bernie Sanders? Unlike a lot of people that are supporters of him these days or acquainted with him. By the 2015, he seemed to come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, he was kind of seen as a really edgy alternative to Hillary Clinton, and he built a movement for which I will be forever grateful for. Bernie Sanders is as some people call him a cult of personality, and I understand why people say that, and I can see where people have accused me of looking at Bernie Sanders like a cult of personality figure, but it's really not true. The fact that somebody can break through the two-party barrier and have a reasonable set of political positions, which are mainstream across the pond in Western Europe and in Australia and New Zealand and around the world, even many developing countries. His politics is considered pretty milk toast and standard and not at all radical, but considered pretty reasonable. But here he's considered a freaking radical. What the F? But how did I become acquainted with Bernie Sanders myself? Uh, Not that I want it to be about me, but it is my channel. And during the 1980s, during the days of Reagan, had a I I had a political awareness that a lot of people my age in my age group, Generation Xers, many of them did not have, and I saw a lot of flaws in the Reagan Revolution that was going on at the time. I just looked at Ronald Reagan, thought did not this just didn't make any sense. In fact, I was pretty much your cliche um, attitude-driven punk rock kid with the man, fuck Ronald Reagan, fuck the government kind of attitude. That was kind of my. It was kind of my early awareness, plus listening to one too many records by the Dead Kennedys, and watching TV shows like The Young Ones, and also being a very big fan of Billy Bragg back then. So you can you can kind of connect the dots. And so I had an awareness about me that a lot of people, mainstream people in my age group, did not have. And so that was I didn't even know who Bernie Sanders was back in the 1980s. Um, I knew I was more or less a socialist, but at that by the time I left high school and getting ready for college and all of that, I kind of saw myself as a New Deal liberal Democrat of today. Like a modern day New Deal Democrat. But I wasn't even aware that the Democratic Party was evolving in a bad direction at that time. I just thought, man, we just get rid of Ronald Reagan, get rid of George Herbert Walker Bush, everything will be all right. And hopefully here in North Carolina can get rid of Jesse Helms, everything will be all right. Well, 1990, I was 21 years old, and I worked on the Harvey Gantt campaign, volunteering. If you don't know who Harvey Gantt was, who he is, he was an African American architect that was the mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, and he ran against Jesse Helms as a Democrat in 1990 and 1996, and it was pretty damn close in both elections. But you know, um, he, you don't know who Jesse Helms was, for you young kids watching this channel, just thank your lucky stars. I used to hang my head in shame about Jesse Helms, but I'm kind of going off the subject as I normally do because I just tend to be long-winded. But where was I? Yes, Harvey Gantt campaign. And I remember watching the election results, and just a few weeks prior to the election, watching it on the news that there was a strange, eccentric person in Vermont by the name of Bernard Sanders, and he is an identified socialist running as an independent to try to unseat. Uh, and I cannot think of the name of the Republican congressman at the time, but trying to reseat the incumbent Republican congressman. And on election night, I was saddened by Jesse Helms being reelected, but I was upbeat about Paul Wellstone of Minnesota winning, and I was also very curious and thought it was kind of a cool thing that somebody outside the two-party system broke through the two-party system. Wow, an actual bona fide socialist winning. Interesting. And I remember watching Nightline with Ted Koppel and Paul Wellstone and Bernie Sanders were both guests there and talking about whether how they apparently they're kind of viewed very similarly with each other. Their ideology kind of overlap. Although Paul Wellstone could never quite call himself a socialist, but for all intents and purposes, I guess he was certainly a social democrat. The way people define social democrats, uh, Bernie Sanders was arguing it had to be done from the outside. Paul Wellstone said had to be done by the inside, through the inside. Well, I took the Paul Wellstone route, which unfortunately Bernie Sanders ended up taking later on. But I took the Paul Wellstone route, and it's like, no, try to make a difference within the Democratic Party. And so, I got very involved in the campus with the college Democrats, and got involved with the political issues at the time, and they didn't appreciate my input because most people in the college Democrats were the dreaded Bill Clinton style New Democrat. Well, by the 1994 election, the Republicans lost, and I knew that Bill Clinton was a letdown. And that I realized the Democratic Party occurred to me. They're pretty damn right wing. I mean, they have moved so far away from the New Deal consensus. Um, and so I joined the Socialist Party USA, and I remember purchasing a video called Democratic Socialism Building New Foundations. And if you can get your hands on a copy of that, you have a gem in your hands. And David McReynolds was interviewed, so was Quinn Brisbane, Karen Covey, who was the city councilwoman in Iowa City. All were interviewed in this video, along with former Mayor Frank Zeidler, and Bernie Sanders was featured in this video. Very awesome. Plus people like Barbara Einreich was also interviewed. So a very it was a very good video with its content on social democracy and how it made one hell of a difference in America. I mean, they didn't say social democracy; they insist on the term democratic socialism. I personally think democratic socialism and social democracy are the one and the same, but there are people out there um, on the left and people even conservatives who are a little more broad. Um, they'll tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know what I'm talking about. I go with this as a standard. If you belong to a political party that's a member of the Socialist International, or belong to a political party that might not be in the Socialist International, but has a politics that's in relation to that tradition, and it calls itself socialist, Social Democratic or Labor Party, or it could be another name that's not used, like the New Democratic Party of Canada, for example, or yeah, African National Congress in South Africa. Um, and all are in that broad tradition. That's why I would say democratic socialism and social democracy are one and the same. But let's talk about Bernie Sanders as a member of Congress. In 1990, he won and he got elected, and he became the first socialist member of the U.S. House of Representatives since the days of Victor Berger of Wisconsin and Meyer London in the 1920s. Both Victor Berger and Meyer London being members of the old Socialist Party of America, the political party of Eugene Victor Debs and Norman Thomas. We had, as a member of the SPUSA, we had kind of a loose relationship, kind of a distant relationship. We we recognized Bernie as an ally, but there were people in the organization that didn't see it that way, and they did everything they could to distance the SPUSA as far away from Bernie Sanders as possible, and that's what led my to my eventual resigning, plus a few other issues here and there. Um, and the sectarian infighting that went on, I just got burnt out. So I've been pretty much on my own since 2005, 2006. Have not joined any official organization, but I've always just maintained myself as an independent, semi-radical. I was impressed with Bernie Sanders over the years, consistently fighting for single-payer health care, fighting for to revive the labor movement, to make unions stronger in this country, to be in opposition to corporately managed trade deals, to to oppose the military-industrial complex. Although he doesn't do as much as I wish he would, but has been pretty damn consistent, nearly consistent in opposing military actions abroad. Still not perfect, but way, way better than the average member of Congress. And he fights like hell to make sure that the working class, and those who are kind of tossed aside and disregarded, that he fights for their cause. I've often told people prior to his presidential run that I have my one voice in Washington D.C. His name is Bernie Sanders, and to this day, I would say he's pretty much my main political voice. And there are a few others in there. As I said, in the 1990s, Paul Wellstone was considered my voice. Congressman Dennis Kucinich was considered my voice. Today, I would say that Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is my political voice, and Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard is my political voice. Ocasio-Cortez is not perfect because she's kind of flirted a little too much with Nancy Pelosi more than I felt comfortable with. And there are certain aspects of Tulsi Gabbard that I also find problematic, but again, they are one of the better members of the U.S. House of Representatives. I wish we had more members of Congress like AOC and Tulsi Gabbard. I wish we had more senators like Bernie Sanders. And so we come to the year 2016 and giving Hillary Clinton one hell of a fight. And it was a fight to try to put a stop to the third way crap that the Democratic Party's been in since the 1980s. And since Bill and Hillary Clinton had this hand in Reaganizing the Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders wanted the Democratic Party to return to its New Deal roots. And And unfortunately, the powers that be cheated him in 2016, and they did a number on him again in 2020. Now, a combination of being a little bit older, 78 years old, about ready to turn 79 in September. Combination of that, plus just being disillusioned, knowing that your presidential candidacy was fucked with again by the Democratic National Committee. The establishment Democrats stole his nomination once again, and he knows it. And some key votes lately, and his absence from a particular vote, controversial vote on internet privacy, puts me in the disappointed camp. But again, he is burned out. He is fatigued. He's tired. Um, and there are times I feel like that the Bernie Sanders that I admired, the Bernie Sanders that pretty much has had a as big of an influence on me in the modern times as historical figures like Eugene Victor Debs and Norman Thomas and Frank Zeiler, the former mayor of Milwaukee, um, David McReynolds, the peace activist, you know the Dorothy Day, the pacifist nun, Catholic worker, activist. These people had an influence on me, and Bernie Sanders is in good company. A. Philip Randolph, Martin Luther King. I mean, going back, Big Bill Haywood from the Industrial Workers of the World, Helen Keller, Emma Goldman. All these people had made one hell of a difference, and probably quite a few of these people are more radical than Bernie Sanders is today and was all his life. However, uh, our different branches of radicals have made a difference for the better in the United States. And the fact that Bernie Sanders have taken social democracy and put it right there for the American people to discuss. It's like all now is missing is that really kick-ass, wonderful universal healthcare system that we need. The safety that is strengthened, and the and a revitalized union movement that can actually um, have a strong trade union movement as bold as it is in places like Norway and Sweden. I know we'll never quite get to that level, but it shouldn't be too much to ask that we could have at least half of the American workforce belonging to a trade union as opposed to less than 10% that we have today. So the big question now is what now? Where do I go? What do I do? I mean, I know I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden in the fall. I mean, I could that, but after the election, where do I go? Do I go where it's all happening? The civil war inside the Democratic Party, and with Bernie Sanders not likely to run again in 2020, has the momentum stop? Is it going to be the Green Party? Is the Green Party's where the torch can be given to carry on? I don't know. I need to know these things, and I need to see tangible results, and that means that in states where Republican governors and legislatures, with a stroke of a pen, got rid of the closed shop and introduced right to work laws, like they did in places like Indiana, West Virginia, Kentucky, Wisconsin, and Michigan, to put that shit in reverse and make it a closed shop state again to protect the unions. I like to. I want to see those kind of tangible results where if we can't have Medicare for all, that we can have at least some progressive governors and find a way to take Medicare and Medicaid and have it expanded to as much as possible to as many people, regardless of income, as possible, with the eventual commitment toward a single payer national health program. These are issues that need to find myself uh, having to choose a side where such a side is possible. And I know I'm going to get it for some people. Well, the only way you're going to have that happen is you fight the good fight inside the Democratic Party. Well, I have been more or less fighting the good fight inside the Democratic Party as a Democrat and outside the Democrat as a part-time Democrat. I've done that all, and I have not seen those tangible results that's needed. I want those tangible results. I do more than anything else. And so this is why I say to myself, I want my old Bernie Sanders from the 1980s back. Anyway, that's pretty much what I got to say for the time being. I just wanted to share my thoughts. And if my commentaries all sound alike, I apologize. It is election time right now. It is That's the time it is, and people are trying to advance their cause. And for me, you know, the ideas and the visions and the overall politics of Bernie Sanders, which is pretty much my own, um, as well. Uh, that's why I go on the internet just ranting on away about what I rant about. Sometimes I do it with the goofy, dorky humor that I have, and then there are times while still being pretty much a goofball, sometimes y'all see my anger, and it's because the American politics have turned into a Saturday Night Live sketch, and that's where we're at right now. I mean, we're living a Saturday Night Live sketch politically. Anyway, that's pretty much it for me right now. Feel free to share your thoughts and like, please, let everybody know about this channel and subscribe and subscribe and urge others to subscribe. Anyway, I'm Bernie Bro. I'm out.